Alex Answer here, coming to you late into the morning, early afternoon. Beautiful day here in Colorado. Got a lot of things done. One of the things that is a benefit from getting off the property and going back into town is getting another 1,000 feet of oxygen. So one of the things that I'm going through, not only living alone, away from society, but commenting on the things that are going on in society, is living above 7,000 feet in elevation. So when we have these solar flares that affect people's personalities, that affect people's emotions, and I realize that I was born with a lot of human emotion. And by the way, you're not looking at a picture of my home. Picture us actually getting together in spirit, perhaps on another planet where humans get along more and we're having a barbecue. And, we're talking about things that affect us all. So that's pretty much what this picture depicts. A building large enough for us to all sit in and act like conscious human beings. A special thank you to the listener in Australia and someone else that's here in the States for some contributions that have come in. I want to note the anomaly that the first three letters of the name were the same for both people, even though they're on different continents. And I just find that to be somewhat of a sign. We talked about psychic attack recently, and there's nothing that gets me attacked on the internet more than discussing that. Even more so when I discuss the archons, which are very similar to the demons. It's just the Gnostic. It's the Gnostic terminology. Now, there's actually a history to Gnosticism and what happened to those people, the torture, the murder. They were forced underground. Here I am in 2017 discussing the same issues, the battle of good and evil. But more specifically, more than any other researcher out there, I talk about how they use racism. I talk about how this racist programming isn't really so much about white supremacy or even white men. It's about the negative entities that live here on the earth, and they'll use different forms of supremacy to tear us apart. So I'm noticing that the attacks on my person are increasing, right, as these podcasts expand. I also notice how others don't get the same type of attacks that cover the exact same issues because they don't mention the archons and they don't discuss the racist aspect of it. They speak in generalities. So, there could be somebody like Reprogram the Matrix, for example, a YouTube channel like that. He, right, as a black man, speaking a lot of great truth. I think he's the best, one of the best on YouTube. Again, I believe the YouTube channel is Reprogram the Matrix. Look at who's attacking him. He's also more careful than I at who I open up my space and energy to. So I'm looking at the last year of my life and I'm looking at the content that I put out and I'm learning a lot about myself, more about the world. It's also why I'm writing on the side when possible. But psychic vampires, this is advice for any of you if you ever think about becoming a YouTuber. When you become a YouTuber and you start speaking against the things that the controllers of this reality are orchestrating, human beings will find themselves not knowing why they hate you and going on autopilot. More disturbingly, they will come in the form of those that try to present themselves as your friend. Now, for those of you that are good souls that are listening, it's important that you listen to what I'm sharing because it doesn't necessarily pertain to you. But I now have 37 years of life on this planet, and I've seen interesting interactions between myself and other human beings throughout the years, but more so after I became a speaker, after I brought this information to YouTube. But really, it began when I began to talk like the attacks, the hardcore attacks, difficulties finding jobs. When the racism increased a few years ago, which is nothing like, after 9/11. After 9/11, cakewalk. Things really have been getting crazy for souls like myself in the last few years. And it's not about racism. It's about the soul. It's about the things that I'm discussing on this channel. So I have some advice, some updated thoughts that I've been thinking about that I wanted to share with some of you. I also want to thank the many emails that have come in, letting me know that you're praying for me. About 4 emails. I'm also seeing how many people actually like those giving me support. We can all see that in the comment section. So understand that those of you that do support my work, you're a very, very, very small A, segment of the human population. B, for those of you that believe my work's contributing to, you're a very small percentage of the viewers. Many of the people that view this YouTube channel are just simply viewing the YouTube channel while sending directed hate, energy, and emotion. That's heavy. It gets very, very heavy. So when you do send me emails, it may not mean anything to you. But when you're sending it from a place of spirit, one person said, Alex, you're immune to the demons. To a certain degree, right? But I'm still a human, right? Who has tears, who has a past. And I mentioned it yesterday and gave it a shout out. Now there's about 100 videos of me on the internet crying. Just type in Alex Ansary crying, Alex Ansary abuse. Type it into YouTube. For the first time now in 12 years, a person that I talked to on this channel, gave him 3 hours of my time, right? The one person who I talked to help his cause, because I wouldn't let him verbally abuse me. He's going on this weird, he's in a weird space. And so I want the people that are listening to this channel to know these types of psychologies are now in motion. And it's not that I don't trust anyone, it's that I now have to use more caution. I'm basically things short of background checks. And you might find that crazy, but again, I'm the guy that several years ago would travel and meet anyone in America. Anyone. And then once I started meeting white supremacists that were calling me to hang out, and the guy pulled a 9mm out in the middle of the forest because he wanted to show off. Then he took me to his buddy house and he's screaming about, the evil mixed race. I'm like, why would people invite me? And why would those that say that they support me, why are they thousands of miles away? Now, I don't know all these answers, but in the last few days that I've been meditating on these things, that I've been spending more time meditating in nature, after this podcast, I'm going to go outside and sit directly under the sun and perhaps make some more videos. I'm also going to be doing some reading. I'm also going to kick back and maybe watch a movie. But yeah, sitting in front of the computer all day long isn't a healthy thing. And it can change us. So the computer is a tool. We want to use this computer to empower ourselves, to bring people together, to educate, to inform. We don't want to use the computers to start executing drone attacks. By the way, there's an article about the sex dolls. They can be hacked. And I warned you also in the video about the sex dolls, right? How they're becoming more popular with some men. I said, hey, what about the potential for these to turn into Terminator sex bots? And as it turns out, that's the very crazy things that I tend to bring you on this channel, I see often in the regular news. They're actually talking about more and more the solar influence over human behavior in some scientific articles and studies. But a lot of people, and they're not the majority, they'll find their way to this channel to start an ionization here on energy. And this is definitely a day and age in which there seems to be more consuming and creating on the video side of things. I know there are people out there that have reached millions and millions and millions and millions of people on YouTube. Some of them have even made $1 million, but they don't even have a single report on anything in writing, whether it be about anything. They might have a rant once in a while on Facebook. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about more as I come to you off the grid, one of the few people that comes to you off the grid doing videos on a regular basis, is the importance of writing from the perspective of the soul. You see, because going back to our discussion about spiritual growth, which is really at the cornerstone of psychic protection, and some additional thoughts that came, I confided with you and let you know, that was a lot of things changed for me in my life when I actually started to talk more directly about the spiritual parasites, calling them out by name, how they use racism, and even Facebook to court people. And there's even people that have launched demonic attacks on me that have emailed saying, dude, that woman sounds like she launched a demonic attack on you. So there are people that engage in psychic attacks, spiritual warfare, as you can see from Googling my name today on YouTube, Alex Psychic Breakdown, Mental Breakdown, This is very important that this person show the world my pain and that others join him. That's not normal. It's one thing for someone just to be angry, but the phenomena that I'm witnessing, that I'm going to be reporting as this continues in real time, is that when they launch their attacks, whether it be a series of comments or insults, they seem to act on the same day or the same hour. So there'll be 5 people at the same time that are spread out thinking about Alex, waking up thinking about Alex, going to sleep thinking about Alex, and having these night terrors thinking about killing Alex or hurting Alex emotionally. That's not normal. And what the audience needs to know is these things never happened to me before. Getting a regular job in America never happened to me, was never an issue like it is now. Now I can tell you that 10 applications have gone in. Some of you heard the story about working for free for 25 hours, and I don't know what kind of an attack that was, but the woman's transmission stopped working. The person I was working for. It was a very unorganized, under-the-table work situation without paperwork. She also had a 14-year-old there that was working probably for free. That was the daughter of her boyfriend. I'm thinking, hey, it's an under-the-table situation working for a female minority. Working under the table, local business might turn out to be a real good thing. And what I found out was it was a mistake to agree to drive her vehicle from the work site 20 to 30 times to get food from the cooler. Okay, because there weren't proper lists. It was like, oh, now I need carrots. And see, I'm driving through like a concert-like environment where there's like, people on the road, that have altitude sickness, that aren't being aware, and you're just like, move off the walk single file line, that kind of a thing. So I worked 25 hours for the first time in my life. I was straight up burned. That would have been about $230. We're talking about close to a land payment. So this is what happened to me last weekend. So I find it interesting that that is taking place as others go into activation. Sure, on the dark side. Sure, things happen to cars and cars break down. However, the timing of this, it was like, was something remote viewing this and setting this up? So no one says yes, Alex, to a legitimate work experience. But the one person who's going to have an under the table deal with a car already in bad shape, who's going to have someone without paperwork run vehicle, run food, and then not pay them anything. And unfortunately for the car to have an issue once I parked it at an incline. Every other car parked at the incline was fine, but the one that I parked at the incline once the regular parking was taken, that's the car that stopped working. And so I've accepted it as a loss. It hurts. But again, thank you for signing up, the listener in Australia, for $5 a month at PayPal. Now there's 3 people there. And then, of course, someone else with the same 3 letters of her name. Another female in the States makes a small donation over there. Small donations, but that's fine because it doesn't matter. Everything helps now, even if it was $1, especially something like 30. So thank you very much. But with just a little bit more support, I can come to you full time. And I don't know if that's what makes people angry, the fact that I'm off the grid. I don't know if other people feel inferior. I'm the one that feels hated. I'm the one that feels like the ugly duckling. And I don't know why somebody would want to exploit that. But it's very clear that that's something to be exploited. A feeling of having no family. A feeling of being hated by the world. This is satanic energy that's been coming at me. So it's coming at me from the least of you, though, and most of you are actually sending me prayers. But that doesn't stop someone from having emotion, from feeling isolated. So again, I pray that some of you may be guided to either this part of America, if that's what's right for you, or for the Creator to assist me in, by accident, meeting people locally that aren't going to treat me a particular way, that aren't going to be afraid of me. What I really would like, but I also see harm in saying what my goals are, because I feel like there's this AI working against me and black magic and the negative thoughts of others. But I really would like to get a part-time job soon, at least a few days a week. I've never been in a situation where I filled out 9 to 10 applications, and the one time I was called back, it was a bad situation where I work for free. I'm now, folks, in new terrain where these things have actually never happened to me before. I don't have a person or a friend within thousands of miles, thousands, and maybe I don't even have a friend there. But I do have some people that support my work on the channel. And some people do support with their prayers. And what I've been thinking about lately is that there is a difference for those of you that have tried to steer me into certain directions that some could argue are new age that I'm not really into. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice, but you can do whatever you want. You shouldn't send people to other people if you don't really know how deep the issue is. If someone worked on you, for example, the question is, are you a teacher? Are you actually under attack? Is your audience under attack? What's that? You don't have an audience? See, this isn't an ego thing. When you become a teacher and you share information about the sun or other particular things that traditionally the powers that be or the dark forces of this world do not want discussed, it's going to activate certain human beings. They're going to hate us for what we do. They may not know why they hate us, but they will know that they hate us. Their hate may last for a month. It may last for 6 months. I tend to have only a few haters that stick around for the full lifetime. They tend to rotate between people and personalities every 6 months. It'll be a new person that finds like, oh, who is this guy? Oh, this guy's a bad guy. This guy has to be stopped. And that's all they know. And to them, it may be really rational. It may be really, really rational. This guy, Alex Ansary, has to die. But it's irrational because there's no evidence of me feeling that way about them. In fact, there's me talking to certain people where other people won't even do a show about particular topics. So it's something that we should study with our soul and ask the Creator to intervene and put it all in his or its hands. Okay? Because the way that we can unmindfully respond to such attacks is anger, is resentment, retaliation energy. We don't need any of that. We need to stay focused on what we're doing here on the earth. Communion with the Creator, greater knowledge, sharing information with others, and being willing to be murdered if the case comes around. I've also been really echoing this. I'm not going to be afraid any longer. I'm not going to be afraid of a tree falling in and hitting me in the head. I'm not going to be afraid of Yellowstone. I'm not going to be afraid of an invasion. I'm not going to be afraid of this country on fire. I'm not going to be afraid of this county having a wildfire issue. I figure it's in the cards in the future. I need to be flexible and be able to go from one thing to another. And I can easily go from YouTube to washing dishes full time if that was to present itself. In a day and age where a lot of people say, get a job, you bum, there isn't really a whole lot of dialogue about those that aren't being called back for the lowest jobs that exist. Don't you find this also to be an interesting time for people to launch spiritual warfare when someone loses their income, when they share tears? They talk about a mother and a father, right? That couldn't love a human being with a unique perspective. And you also should be aware that just because people have wives or husbands, parents, that doesn't necessarily make them appreciative that they have those parents in their lives. Some people are hateful anyways. They may have a home. They may never have been homeless. They may never have lived through a natural disaster. They may never have been called a San Negro. They may never have been attacked like the people that they're attacking. So they're not the ones getting the pleasure from the attacking, even if there are certain things activating within the consciousness. But the non-human director of, say, those 3 to 5 people that are focused with intent energy, they are working on behalf of something else. So for those of you that aren't teachers, for those of you that have never been attacked like me, then you haven't been attacked like me. Then you are not in a position to teach or show where the protection to the attack comes from. You have to have experience being attacked for being a teacher to know the first thing about defending yourself. Furthermore, I have seen audience members of mine activated, a few of them, to be nasty and angry if I don't believe exactly what they believe. They believe that it's their job to come into my life and then start directing things. That's a special kind of psychosis. And it often comes through the Facebook private messages. There are people actually that were normal a few years ago that started going, hey, Alex, um, you know, I don't know at what point you became a globalist, dude, but the earth is flat. You need to get a clue. Okay, you're spouting out this, dude, solar flares don't exist. And I think that's it, because for a lot of people, it's the Archon stuff, the off the grid stuff, and the solar stuff. I don't know if the geopolitics is pissing off as many Russian trolls as I think. It really seems to be the spiritual warfare dialogue, the solar flare commentary, and anger that I'm not living in a city. The commentary regarding spiritual warfare, I'm also the only one to talk about men rite of passage, getting away from the computer, getting away from the city. This specific dialogue has attracted parasite energy that won't go away and rotates the male. I'm not feeling it from the females. What I can say is definitely was going through a lot of emotion in 2014 and 15. So there are those videos that I already put out, Why Don't Chase the Women of Today's Day and Age. That wasn't misogyny. That was discussing how the values that Alex Ansary has are not sexually attractive to today's female human. It's not. I'm more of like a big brother or little brother, however you choose to view it. A lot of married women. Shout out to the married women by the thousands that listen to this channel. But yes, single women of my age, they keep a good distance of 3, 4, 5,000+ miles, unless they come to sabotage. Unless it's just coming with lust and carnalism. But nothing really regarding deep, profound. Like, let's make love together. Let's make food together. Let's go camping together. Let's, like real things, not just ooga booga, one night stand, come on, ride the train. And so I started criticizing that. And then women began attacking me in Portland. Old female friends started to tell me things like, well, no wonder no one likes you, dude. You're a friggin', and all I'm discussing is higher relationships. So that was the first thing that I noticed. And shout out to those of you that are higher soul, I guess, MGTOW men. But I don't know if you're the majority or the minority, it's hard to tell. But a certain amount of the MGTOW men became obsessed with this channel and saw me to be the devil of the earth, believe it or not. First evil doesn't exist. Then Alex Ansary is the evil of the earth. Way to jump. Way to jump realities, dude. I've also seen some female new ages. All is love. All is one, except that Alex Ansary dude over there. And it's like, I haven't seen that through my mother. And so, yeah, a lot of these parasites are actually recreating childhood traumas. And what I'm noticing in also my additional emotion with the eclipse, the tears, this is beautiful. I'm feeling more in my heart than I felt in a long, long time. So it comes in the form of maybe more working out or more crying or more writing or more reading, more running, more jogging for those of you that are joggers, because I'm very expressive, mind, body, and spirit, emotion. I'm active all over the place. So as we see the largest solar flare in a decade, and by the way, there's a lot of earthquakes. We're not going to be covering news in this podcast. There are a lot of earthquakes that are taking place. This is normal. It's actually normal to see periods. And I've also noticed when the trolls are most active and least active. They're most active, and I'm just saying in general, like all over the internet. Not just with me. I'm talking about the whole internet. For example, there was a period in which many men and women were calling for the rape of a woman about a month ago because she desecrated a flag. And even if someone agrees with that or doesn't agree with that, I mean, rape? Really? That's pretty psycho. So I noticed that there were whole groups and chats dedicated to calling for her rape. And in this year alone, I've seen a sharp increase in men and women. It's important that people understand, the men and women listening. I'm talking about women endorsing men calling for rape of their political enemies. You may not have seen it yet, but in the case of Emily Lance, Lance, and in the case of some others, I have seen that. And they look like demons, the people that are calling for others to be hurt. So I noticed Also, in a video of mine, and you can go ahead and look it up for yourself. I believe it is. Portlanders fight over the flag or something like that, 4th of July. And I didn't even record the video. Someone sent it to me from Portland, said you can put this on your channel. Well, the video had several thousand people calling for basically murder of their political opposition. Here's what I noticed about that. Their most hateful comments were coming around the full moon. This would be around the winter. It was also that period where someone that was trying to physically, right, he was connecting with me on email. He flipped around the time of the full moon. And that's when I became a cult leader in his eyes. It was around the time of the full moon. So here we have the biggest solar flare in a decade. We have the full moon that we've come out of. And we have the August 21st total solar eclipse. Somehow, some way, this is having a big impact on a segment of the population. Also noticed Charlottesville, the torches, all of that action happening several weeks ago. So we're right now sitting in a hotbed. Ooh, I just dropped the pen. We're right now sitting in a hotbed of that activity. And I talked years ago saying that by 2016, by 2017, this would be a very important time to take a closer look at these things regarding spiritual growth. I wrote an article that you may want to read that I wrote back in 2005. It is, Are Your Thoughts Your Own? Mass Media Mind Control Through Network TV. Try to find it at alexansary.tv or type in alexansary.tv, Mass Mind Control Through Network TV. I wasn't even getting into the paranormal, but I was definitely aware of the paranormal, demons, spiritual parasites, spiritual attacks. But not at all did I know what it was like to be spiritually attacked to the degree that I have been up until this point. But I would say the hardest years for me are not the current. The hardest years for me regarding the trolling and spiritual attacks, I would say concentrate between 2013, 2014 to 2015. 2015 was a big year for me in getting out of Portland, seeing my prayers to the Creator answered, and the help that I needed, including financial, existed and manifested. So it was a miracle. And from there, I was able to move to the next level. And I found myself helping white off-gridders being kicked off their land in a day and age where I'm not, we've talked about that. And I did it to help people that I thought appreciated my help. And I found out that that was not the case. Found out that a lot of people wish that the whole discussion wouldn't even come up on the radar. I came to learn later in 2015, 2016, that many off-gridders don't really believe in camaraderie with other off-gridders unless they have the same politics or are part of the same tribe or are brought together over a common interest. Okay. My main interest, obviously, as you guys know, is controversial views. That's not the kind of thing that a lot of people are into. Now, let's say I had a special talent, right? Cutting hair, massage, drumming, something that was far louder of a personality than a contrarian, then I would have a different life. There's plenty of people of Middle Eastern genetics and others that are able to assimilate within the society because they're not teaching anything. They're part of the system. They're part of the restaurant. It's when you become a teacher, it's when you start sharing information like this that actually, let's go again. We talk about what happened to him. Stalin became aware of his research years, actually, after 1915 to the 1918 period. And he was asked to retract his writings on solar cycles, which contradicted Soviet theories of the reasons of the Russian revolutions of 1905 to 1917. He refused and was arrested and spent 8 years in a forced labor gulag, followed by 8 years of Soviet rehabilitation, where he conducted scientific work in the coal mines. May my life in 2042 be more peaceful, but I don't know. Looking at the good men that have come before us, even men that just presented a new science, like Alexander Chavinsky, I wonder what your society is going to have up its sleeve in several years' time. I will also say that there are very few Muslims that have ever supported my work. Um, very recently, a donation came in from someone in the United States, but I remember when one of my most dedicated haters was a Muslim who would troll me and call me a sun worshiper. So it's important for those that say they hate Muslims to know that they are actually united with Muslims against a non-Muslim, and that person is Alexander Saeed Ansari. That's me. Okay. The guy that was born in the United States, born outside of religion, living off the grid, and bringing to you this information about the threats that I see coming to this continent. But this very much also includes Australia, other Western nations, these major changes that I'm discussing. It affects the whole world. So it makes sense to me at this time that some people are going to go through possession issues or inner turmoil, pain, suffering, depression, attacking others that create things while not creating your own warnings about them, about white supremacy if they claim to be against that, or if they claim to be against the disinformation of Gary Franchi. What are you against? Or are you just against people in the alternative media that will create their own content, that will share their tears and allow people to hurt them? Allow people, but see, I will not allow people to sabotage my inner life. Okay. Again, we keep going back to this, and I want the men that are listening with good souls to hear this again. It's been many years since I've seen good men. Many years. The last time that I recall being around good men, I'm going to have to pause for a moment. I don't know. Let's talk about it some other time. But in general, 2009 were warmer years in society, but I've always been rejected by your men and women. So I don't really view men or women above. I rather have the love of a woman than a man, to be honest with you. Even if it's spiritually, even if you don't tell me that you're sending me positive energy, I'm cool with that too. I feel something from a few of you from last night. And you know what? In a world where some of us are that sensitive, that helps because the others that know that I'm sensitive, they're exploiting that or say attempting to. So it's important that people understand, especially, there's a lot of women that thought that I was attacking women. I was saying that my values aren't attractive to today's female. Now to attack me for that, for being honest, that's sickness. And that educated me further. But that didn't mean that I was saying that men were superior. It was when MGTOW men or men that found my videos, right, that saw me share my suffering, they would come to exploit me on the other side because of their pain. And then I would be educated that many men that haven't had sexual intercourse with a female have fallen under the psychosis that they're all going black or that they're all going Muslim. When in reality, I'm actually hearing from minorities and people like myself that are considered non-whites now, whereas before it wasn't a big deal. We're less attractive in the real world to the women that are in our immediate environments. Again, all the positive energy that is being sent by women is thousands of miles away. So I've seen men and women, right, that I've known for years. If they're not spiritually strong, the epochs, the solar flares, the eclipses brings friends and removes friends, or turns some into trolls, but that's not really a major issue. I'm just noticing the isolated cases. And I'm asking the creator to show me what comes next after that with regards to what humans are willing to do to each other. I know that humans, for the most part, in our Western society will keep their mouth shut about millions being removed off the planet, and that a certain amount of them will want to emotionally torture those that have been tortured their whole lives. But I'm asking the creator to show me the goodness, not just in spirit, but in the community. Real people, random acts of kindness, random acts of having a cup of coffee, random acts of spiritual dialogue. I haven't had real dialogue with anyone in the physical regarding deep, profound spirituality since Laurelhurst Park. Although I did have a friend he's been a friend since 2012. Met him in Dallas, and he came to visit a couple months ago with his kids. That was great. With the exception of that, and he was just here for a night. And with the exception of a few other things, it's been a very long time since I've had a discussion with a male or a female regarding spiritual ideas outside of, say, an email. outside of, say, and you can always reach me at the facebook.tv page. And again, I had several people that said they've been following me for years attack me for not taking their particular New Age advice. And I think that people that think that they're in a position to give advice, again, they need to ask themselves, have they been attacked like I've been attacked? Are they teachers? Are people attacking their genetics because few humans are alive of a certain, and that's not attacking them, it's a question. And the answer to that question is either yes or no. So it goes deeper. If you've never been attacked in the streets, how can you teach someone self-defense? Or if you've never taken a self-defense course, or if you've taken a self-defense course, but the only training that you're doing, like picture classic karate with no practical jujitsu wrestling training, right? Just class, put your hand down on your hip, right? And picture a situation where they've never been thrown to the ground. They've just learned kicking and striking. Then how are they going to be able to wrestle out of a bad situation if they've never been thrown to the ground? Likewise, the wrestler who never learns how to punch, if he's in a situation where they're not going to be able to take someone to the ground and they're dealing with a stronger person who's going to be able to outbox him, is that person going to be able to defend themselves if they don't know how to block a strike, if they can't take that person down to the ground like the UFC? So if someone wants to learn a particular skill or something from a person, you should try to learn it from a person who's been through it. Okay, so the question is, if you've never been in a fight, can you teach me how to be better at what I already do with my parrying and my striking? I've seen people try, but it's awkward. Likewise with spiritual attack, as long as I continue to have a YouTube channel and I don't shut it down, as long as the YouTube section remains open, as long as I am primarily on the internet and not in the outside world, as long as I am teaching to a certain degree, there's going to be forces of influence, increasingly so, that are going to try to separate us, to make sure that you stop supporting what I do, to make sure or to encourage others that are psychic vampires, as we're seeing right now on YouTube, with videos of myself in tears for no reason whatsoever. I'm not embarrassed about what's being said there, but I know what the person's doing. They're trying to grab random people on the internet that don't even know me. Go, who the fuck is this crying little baby? It's like, whoa, I haven't felt this since I was a second grader. Like this type of like sandbox stuff. So some of you are going, oh, Alex, you just ignore the trolls, and you might even have less respect for me. And the question is, what are you doing to teach? Then this is an attack on the audience. This is addressing those folks that thinks all this stuff is so simple. But what it's really about is more of you sincerely praying to the Creator, because the Creator does respond, just like I think at times the devil does respond. Okay, the Creator does respond to your prayers, and whether you believe it or not, the power of collective manifestation is very, very powerful. So for those of you that believe in those things, keep up what you're doing, because I definitely feel the love. I felt so good waking up this morning and this afternoon, and I can definitely feel a great difference. Again, I'm apparently somewhat abnormally sensitive to the solar flares. So as I see myself sharing tears and sharing emotion and sharing things that I was actually warned to not share about by people that taught me some basics of psychic protection, I'm doing it anyways because of those of you, even those of you that aren't able to afford it. Okay. There are countless videos about the archons for free that not only humans have watched, but other intelligences have watched. There's actually an article out there. Are aliens watching us from space? I kid you not, in the last day, scientists are hypothesizing this more and more. And here I am sounding like a lunatic saying something is sabotaging my life and energy body and my DNA from space and manipulating a few people that have unhealthy obsessions with this channel. This is heavy. When the devil of this world hates your incarnation and has turned both your mother and your father against you and many audience members, that is a sign of the devil of this world disliking God's creation. The only way to counter that is not to respond with anger, but to pray for those people. Let us now pray for those people. There may not be any hope if the troll is in fact an alien and not here on the earth, but up in a spacecraft and is trying to convince us that it's an earthling. But let's just pretend, for example, that the troll isn't an alien, but it's a human with emotions, with loving parents, or maybe not, with a heart. And let us send that human being love. Love in the heart, love in the energy body. We are not the ones that traumatized that individual as a soul or a baby, but things have happened along the way that have altered us. Don't just send me love. Send love, loving energy to those that are troubled at this time, right? May they see the benefit of us working together against the common, if you will, authorities of this reality. Okay? That person may be in Russia. They may have an alcohol problem. It doesn't matter. They are worthy of love anyway. Anyway, we see how people here in the United States do horrible things for money. Have you heard about life in Russia? Where the government, I guess, has subsidies for vodka so they don't get sick drinking the black market vodka. Whoa. That's crazy, sister. I mean, whether it's a troll working in St. Petersburg or somewhere else, the vibe I got from reading about that particular group of individuals, those are some very sad individuals that aren't even proud to say what they do in front of other Russians. But this isn't really about them. It's also, there's some Americans, as I mentioned, because I've dealt with the ire of some Muslims, not to judge them all. I'm speaking more from my past, not the present, and how a dedicated troll for about a year, he may still be there. He claimed that he was a supporter out of Africa for many years. And then when this stuff came up, though, okay, it was for some reason, when this stuff came up to this Muslim, I was a servant of the dark side in his mind for sharing with you this knowledge. And so I want those to start connecting the dots, whether you've been watching for a few weeks or watching for a few years. That there is obviously a direct correlation with the kind of information that I'm sharing with you. This period in which we've seen the largest solar flare. So when I say that I think there's going to be some attempted murders increase, it has to do with the fact that we're in a cycle of time that we could see trolling turn into actual attempts to murder. It's not outside the realm of possibility. There's no healthy explanation for obsessing on anyone. Every time I feel myself start to type into someone's comment box and like feel some sort of like disdain for the YouTuber, immediately I stop and I delete my comment because I see no point. I have no right to attack anyone else who has a view, even if I think their view is psychotic. You know, even if they're calling for genocides, I may want to argue with them, and I did a lot more of that last year. I become a lot more peaceful with regards to that, and I choose to just not talk to people. I go the other way. I cross the street. I don't talk to people that call for the murder of others. I don't sit there, and once in a while I may go off on the characters, though, that act like they care about the innocent Afghanis and Iraqis. When in their next video they're going, Durka, 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 Durka. So here's something that I want to leave you with also that I've learned. When you start learning about your own powers, and we actually are stronger as spirits to protect ourselves during solar flares, we're not only more emotional, but we can flip it. If you're a teacher, right? Let's just say, for example, you're a martial arts teacher and the person that's planning to kick your ass in the physical is watching your martial arts channel or is becoming a student. Do you want those that are attacking you to also be your students, to learn your defense offensive techniques? The answer is no. And really, it's about defensive. And so for years, I've put out information regarding the actual techniques that I use. but they aren't the only techniques that I used. And I noticed that a lot of bad things, and I'm not going to talk about it now because they'll just be exploited, they'll just be repeated. But some bad things happened a few years ago, right? And it was including the off-grid Costilla thing. But it was when I started to talk about psychic protection and the archons after I left Portland and I was in Colorado. And I feel like the fallen spirits had to get me out of Costilla County. Again, this information was created off the grid when I was in Costilla County, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, depending on which way you take. But I'm like, I'm on the clear other side of the state. I'm not going to remain in an area where you have harassment going on. And I'm thinking about a move next year up north to the northwest tip of Colorado. I'm going to see this whole state, but not Denver. I'm going to see parts of Idaho. I probably shouldn't even be talking about Arizona, but it would be nice to see more people in general of a higher nature, right? In the general middle part of America, northern New Mexico, Nevada. There's someone that contacted me, a deaf woman from Nevada, and I thank her. I also thank her for letting me know that she's disabled. I sometimes see greater compassion for those that are disabled than those that have all their senses. It seems that many of the women and men that have all their senses aren't using their senses in the highest good and are using this magic, if you will, the computer, the internet. We could be exposing people doing wrong, but instead people are rerouting it to these energy loops to where we're attacking each other. Definitely not a psychology that I consider normal or traditional to our ancestral heritage, as computers are still fairly new in our reality. So I've also learned that my criticisms of most women turned into the criticisms also of most men. And that resulted also in the ire. So there really is no gender or race or religion that I prefer or see as superior over any. The only thing that I really see as superior is a mindset, which is individualism. So it could be a female, it could be a white female, it could be, but it's not because of her race. It's because of her mindset. If, say, one person is compared to another with regards to their spiritual abilities, it's the kind of soul that is in that body. It can be a white woman, it can be a brown man, as unpopular as that understanding is. But I know what that's like. I don't live in the body of a white woman who may have 3,000 people subscribing to her alleged channeled information from the Galactic Federation of Light. I'm actually a brown man that is actually discussing the fact that we are not seeing a collective shift in consciousness, but calling a particular type of DNA. And there are people calling themselves spiritual that even claim to have psychic defense information, that not one day in all their Archon podcasts will discuss the calling in the Middle East. What does that make me? That also makes me the only researcher amongst you that will talk about millions being removed from the planet by the devil of this world. Okay. And this is what makes people angry as well, in addition to discussing how there seems to be a sacrifice going on. See, there are people that talk about Illuminati, and there are people that talk about dates 322. They forget that they're not even interested. When we see more solar cycles, there seems to be more sacrifice of all different types of humans. It doesn't matter what the race is, but when we look at the world since 9/11, we're obviously seeing a mass death concentration of Middle Eastern humans, while much of the population is being turned against those humans, maximizing the emotional trauma that those humans are experiencing. So yes, to the women of the audience, I found myself really looking at it even beyond gender at this point. It's like coming full circle. And perhaps the amount of love, gender-wise, that is being sent to me now, I'm going to rate it to where it should be. I believe, really, with only 2 more females stepping up and going, okay, positive energy, or a few males, and realizing that this isn't a joke. This isn't being done for AdSense. I'm literally sharing with you aspects of my soul that are now under attack. When you increase your prayer voltage, I'm feeling it. And I can really feel what should be right, a 50% split. So about half of you are female in some cases. that are vibing to the love vibration, not the conspiracy World War III stuff, but you're vibing to what my soul is sharing. And I feel you on that level. On the other level, I can feel men dropping out going, oh, Alex is emotional. Right. But so is the world. The world's moving. Do you know how many earthquakes are taking place? So again, a lot of this is going to keep coming down to the solar flares. And as I told one of my closer friends, this is the most important work that I have ever published. Now, I'm also going to be letting you know whether the attacks are increasing or decreasing as this PDF goes public, because that's also going to verify whether this is the core of what is really upsetting the demons of this world, this information about the sun, the science of the sun. Because no one is actually being attacked on this channel. We're discussing ideas. We're discussing concepts. We're discussing the idea. Let's read from Carol Moore. Government leaders often respond to mass protests by starting wars to unite the people and suppress